Welcome to the Boschcast with James Boschman and Denise Young, where we talk about Manitoba real estate and everything else that's on our minds.
All right, everyone, here we are again, episode 3. Thank you so much to everybody who checked out our last episode last week. And we have a lot of really interesting things to talk about this week and some funny stories. And please, as a reminder, because I don't want to forget, please like, share, and subscribe because, it helps with our business. It helps with, we want to talk about really fun stuff, but we also want to share like what's going on in our industry, what's going on in the market. So the more people that have access to this information is, I think, really important, especially in this day and age where you have to be really careful about where you get your information from. And it's more important than ever to be hypercritical and hyper local. And Denise and I are both, realtors who are actively practicing every single day in real estate. So we are as boots on the ground as it gets. We're dealing with buyers, sellers of all kinds, you name it, from all walks of life, builders, developers, dabbling in some commercial, condos, resale, everything. So we want to try to be as transparent about what's happening as possible so that we can keep people informed as well. But we want to make it super light and fun as well. So I got a question actually that came in from a client. And before we get into this podcast too deep, the question was, what's a really interesting thing about you guys that most people may not know? And you can go first, Denise. You can answer.
I don't know how interesting it is, but most people might find it a little shocking because I'm an avid reader and movie watcher, and I only watched and read Harry Potter last year. Never had seen any of the movies or read the books prior to last year.
How dare you?
I know. With all my nieces and nephews loving them growing up, I managed to not. And I don't know, I think the whole Potterhead mania had me kind of scared to attempt it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's well, I'm glad that you finally got into it.
Yeah.
So did you just binge them all? Like, did you do a big...
I did. My nephew wanted to do a movie marathon when I was visiting in July. And so it was end of April when I had helped my sister move to Kitchener. And he had mentioned that while I was there. And so I read all the books in that, 9-10 weeks in between visits. And then we were going to watch the movies together when we were in Kitchener. Unfortunately, and fortunately, my great niece ended up staying with us, and she's only 7, so it wasn't really appropriate to watch them with her. So we ended up not watching them. So I had to watch them myself this fall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Did you like the books better or the movies better?
You know what? They both had their pros and cons.
Definitely different though.
Yeah, they're definitely different. I really enjoyed the books. Yeah. But yeah, the movies definitely had their charm as well. But
That's awesome. Yeah, I so one of our friends recently told us that she binged the entire Lord of the Rings series in a day.
Oh my!
17 or 18 hours of watching with all the extended cuts and everything.
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy, but
yeah, I felt proud that I managed to do all that in a year. Yeah.
Movie marathons are fun. Like I want to do that more. I want to do like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. I'd love to do a Marvel one, but it's hard to you have to look up which order to watch them in.
I'll send you the order. We've done it. It's so fun to do it in this order.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that's on my bucket list for sure. So for me, interesting thing that most people may not know. Well, I have one that I want to say, but I don't want to incriminate myself in the city of Portage la Prairie. So if you don't hear from me in a couple of days, I may be in jail.
Okay.
But when I was in like, I would say grade 9 to grade 12, I was a wild kid. I used to skateboard, and I was in a hardcore band, and I was kind of like a ruffian. I was did whatever I wanted, and partied, played a lot of pranks on people. It's all harmless stuff. Like, I wasn't really doing anything illegal, but I would go to my buddy's house quite often, and we were notorious prank callers. So did you ever see that show Crank Yankers with
No.
those puppets?
No.
So that was like one of my favorite shows back in the day.
Okay.
And it's basically a show with like Muppet style puppets, and the voiceover actors, it's like live audio recordings of real prank calls that people have made, and then they kind of make like a puppet show. It used to be on Comedy Central and stuff, but that gave us that, and Jackass gave us like a lot of really bad ideas.
Yeah.
The group of guys that I used to hang out with, but just as an example, one of my most notorious prank calls, we used to phone. So in Portage la Prairie, anybody listening, if you're from Portage, you'll know that there's probably more fried chicken and more pizza restaurants per capita than probably anywhere else in the world. That's probably exaggerating, but literally every second building, it's like pizza and chicken, pizza and chicken, chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's just small town vibe, right? And so they used to have Toonie Tuesdays every Tuesday. Like, all the stores, all the chicken spots would have Toonie Tuesdays, including KFC. So we used to phone people and pretend. I used to phone people and pretend like I was the KFC delivery driver outside, looking for their property. Like, because I was like, hi, my name is blah blah blah. I'm calling from KFC. I'm just trying to find your address. I'm outside. I'm on your street right now, and I have your 600-piece chicken meal.
Yeah.
And I would just scare the living daylights out of these people. And this is right around the time that I wasn't necessarily big into wrestling, but I was big into like UFC and stuff like that. But have you ever heard of John Cena?
Yep.
So John Cena's got this like notorious walkout song, da, 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 John Cena, So we found like some really hilarious audio clips, and we used to have like an auto dialer that would randomly select or change our phone numbers, and they would always be area code specific. Like, it would be specific 204 area code numbers. So we would hand select people. Like, it would be like our principal of our school, or like our consumer math teacher, or like,
Yeah.
Mr. Halmerson, or my homeroom teacher at the time. And we used to phone at like 11 at night, and it would be like, are you ready for this Sunday? And it would be like a pre-recorded message. They'd be like, who is this? What's this Sunday? This Sunday, for a limited time only, we have WWE Super Slam with John Cena, for a low price of $49.99. And it would be like this big epic like production on the phone.
Yeah.
And they would hang up, we'd keep calling back, and just piss these people off so much. Like, and then one of the parts of the both the second or third time that we would call back, it's amazing how these people would still answer the phone, but I'd be like, hi, is Champ there? And they're like, Champ? Who's champ? Who is champ? That is a question that will be answered this Sunday night with John Cena. Da, 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 da. Oh my God. I'm pretty sure that we hit like local MPs and like different political figures. I don't know how we found their phone numbers, Denise, but like, yeah, we were terrible. So
They're bus benches.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We never called realtors. That's one thing, because we didn't really have like city bus bench. We didn't have city bus in Portage, so we didn't have a need for bus benches. But that I should have called more realtors. It's just funny that I'm talking about this, because last episode I was talking about how I absolutely despise when I get like unsolicited phone calls from people.
Yeah.
And then I remember after, I was like, man, that was a pretty big piece of shit back in the day. So,
well, I have to say that is the best thing about not having my bus bench anymore, is not having so many crappy phone calls or texts. Because like I used to get so many bad ones.
Yeah.
And at all times of the night, even.
I was talking to another realtor yesterday, and he was like, do you have like an I can't remember what it's called, but apparently you can get like a it's like I don't know if it's a dialer, but it's kind of like a receiver. Okay. And you can create like a 1-800 number, and so that you can create like multiple phone numbers. That way clients know to call. Like if they call a number, it'll go to, an assistant or a receptionist or whatever. Because I have my, I'm going to put this out there and people are going to like prank call me now, but I have my cell phone on everything.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing and a curse. So, because I get phone calls like, that are directed towards builders and developers and stuff like that. And I have to like weed through them, and it's very time consuming, but yeah, prank calls that was my bread and butter back in the day. But yeah, so getting into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast, next week, Wednesday, January 25th, there is another Bank of Canada policy rate. That's the next rate hike, so to speak. There's kind of three things that can happen. The first thing that could happen is the Bank of Canada doesn't hike rates, which I don't think is going to happen. So I forgot to put the cool banner up here.
Yeah.
So one of three things, they could either not hike rates at all. They could raise rates slightly, or they could slam us with another, 50 basis point hike or something like that. So a lot of people out there making predictions, and I mean, nothing shocks me anymore in this crazy world. But what do you think is going to happen?
I think 0.25. I don't think they're going to go all in. But yeah.
I would say the same thing. I think just based on some of the research and stuff I've been doing, it's unwise for them to hit us with a 50 basis point hike at this point. Over almost 80% of the data, like 80% of the market, is basically pricing in 25 basis points.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to not hike rates, because, if they, first of all, Bank of Canada always seems to piggyback on what the US Fed does. And even though we don't have quite the population and we're a totally different country, we're still, North America. And I think it would be unwise for the Bank of Canada to not at least do it 25 basis points. Because if they didn't raise rates, then it sends signals to all the markets that, the doom and gloom is over and their rate hiking cycles are over, and, the markets start rallying again. It sends the wrong signal.
Right.
And then we're back in this like stagflation territory, where inflation's not coming down, markets go up. When they send the wrong signal, the market goes up, and then they have to like keep raising rates again to like get it to come down, and it's like this.
Right.
It's like they don't want to make the mistakes that they made in the past. So, not that I think that the Bank of Canada is like has been practicing good monetary policy this entire time, because I think they've been absolutely horrendous. And I think Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem should lose his job. I still think that the fact that he was coming out and saying, inflation's transitory, and all of this demand is just due to pent up demand in the market because people can't travel, so they're spending their money. It's like, no, it's a money supply problem. It's you guys helicoptered in 30% more currency into our economy, and it was, cheap money, flooded with cheap money, low interest rates, low inventory, just like the perfect storm. And then they let the fire burn for too long. And now they're coming in, there was no forward looking indicators. They weren't thinking ahead. They just acted. And now we're in the spot where we are. So when the Bank of Canada looks to the Fed and the Fed remains hawkish and they set the tone, then it's not wise for the Bank of Canada to be dovish. But I also think that there's a lot of talk out there right now in the markets that the Bank of Canada, their target, they're coming out and they're saying by summer of 2023, we want to be back down to our 2% inflation target. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen. I think the majority of businesses don't think that's going to happen. So I think that they have to move that goalpost up. So instead of 2%, they might come out and say, it's a little stickier than we thought, and global markets have changed, and maybe they'll blame it on the war in Ukraine, maybe they'll blame it on China, whatever. But they'll come back and they'll move the goalpost. So they'll say, we'd really be happy with 4%. I think that they should be happy with 4% target. Maybe by summer we'll be at 4%. At the rate that they've hiked everything. But I don't think that we're going to be at 2% this year, maybe 2024, just like I don't think we're going to be back at 2% fixed rates ever again. So, majority of businesses out there, they don't believe that we're going to see 2% inflation in the foreseeable future, maybe 4 or 5%. And the fact that global trade and markets have changed, the Bank of Canada's goal is to hit that 2% by summer of 2023, but I don't think it's going to happen, because even if they get down to whatever target they have, central banks will want to see how the markets have held up for an extended period of time before they ease off the brakes of hiking. So that's my thinking. I think it's going to be 25 basis points. I think we have a little bit more pain to feel yet, but the reality is that inflation is down. So inflation kind of rolled over and it peaked and it's down now. Canada 5-year bond yields have come down to 2.8%. And historically, Canada bond yields kind of dictate what's going to happen with fixed rates. And 2.8% bond yield, typically we should be in and around that 4% fixed rate territory. And we kind of are, like when I talk to a mortgage broker, they're like, yeah, we can get you 4.59 or 4.69, depending on your qualifying on a 5-year fixed rate. I think that this might be a bold prediction, but I think that next week, Wednesday, January 25th, they raise it 25 basis points. Give it another week and a half. By the end of maybe the first week of February, I think that we're going to be in the low 4% fixed rate territory. You might see like 4.39, 4.29, 4.19%. You know, that's a bold prediction, but I think that's where we'll be. And those aren't bad rates at all. Like that's super healthy,
Awesome. Yeah.
healthy fixed rates.
Mm-hmm.
The variable rates will likely stay high. So variable rate holders, including myself, we have a little bit more pain to feel, but the goal with a variable rate is, you know, over the long term, you know, if you look at like the trend line from a variable rate perspective, the idea with a variable rate is that, you know, you stomach some pain now, but at the end of the day, you're saving money. And I think I'm still confident that, you know, if somebody's looking to get a mortgage right now, they should opt for like either a lower term or shorter term mortgage, because rates will come down, maybe 2-3 year at most, or a variable. And if you have the ability to float an extra principal payment or something every month, I think variable's a great option. But yeah, that's where I think we're kind of headed. So what does it mean though? I mean, people are like, you know, but how does that affect me? You know, like what does it mean for Winnipeg market? What does it mean for Manitoba? So I think that based on the signs of inflation slowing down, wage growth is also slowing. Over the last few years, wage growth was at like 12 or 13%. That's starting to see signs of slowing now. You know, an anecdote that I could use was when the lumber and material prices in the market were going crazy.
Yeah.
And builders were freaking out. You know, week after week, I was getting phone calls from builders saying, we need to raise our prices. We need to add escalation clauses. It's getting more expensive. And, you know, buyers were having to stomach these extra costs from lumber material pricing. You know, it wasn't just lumber material pricing that was increasing. It was like tradespeople. Like builders were having a really hard time, number one, finding good tradespeople, because there was, you know, so much other work out there. But then also there was like a wage war. Like builders were having, if they wanted good tradespeople, they had to pay them more money, which was also reflective in the higher pricing. But we're starting to see that like taper out now. It's not really happening anymore. The competition is not really there. And I remember a few months ago when we started to see like the interest rates really, I think it was when Bank of Canada hit us with that 1% basis point hike. I remember picking up the phone and calling a builder because he was freaking out about, well, you know, I can't get a framer, or I can't get a plumber, or can't get this. They don't want to work. They don't want to work for me, you know. Now that's rolling over. They're all phoning that builder, those same people that said, no, we're too busy. We have a higher wage job over here or whatever. Now they're phoning back. And I told them that would happen, and it's happening now. They're phoning and they're like, hey, do you have work? It's like, have the tables turned now, right? So that's a clear sign that things are starting to simmer down a little bit too. But yeah, full-time, part-time employment is still increasing. So there's a lot of talk about recession and stuff like that. I don't think that we're quite recessionary yet, because we would need to see like an absolute annihilation of jobs. Like 2008 recession, businesses were closing their doors. People were getting laid off left, right, and center. Like it was a bloodbath out there.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing that here.
No, we've heard of some big layoffs in maybe Toronto.
Yeah.
But you know, what was the big layoffs here? 39, was it 39 or 30 only? I don't remember. Still lots for
Yeah.
you know, a small area, but at New Flyer a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that we would need to see a lot more pain before they, you know, hit that recession button. unless like politicians do, they change the definitions all the time.
Yeah.
Like the definition of recession could change. They could change it. They could say
you change all the definitions suiting to suit whatever they want to be happening.
Suit their agenda. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were right now, I think I was looking at the numbers, we're at 4.4% unemployment rate, which is still under the national average of 5%.
Yeah.
I think we're the fourth lowest province in Canada for that. So that's good. And that hasn't changed since November of last year.
Right. Our real estate market is also a lot more, say, stable than those other areas like Toronto, Vancouver. You figure when you look at the numbers, like I know we're not having a lot of bidding wars, but the stuff's still selling. The numbers aren't bad.
Yeah, I think like prices are remaining relatively stable because of our low inventory. Like we have kind of an inventory shortage in Winnipeg specifically compared to same time. If we eliminate the pandemic anomaly years, 2020 to 2020 or 2020 to 2022, we eliminate those years and say we're going back into a balanced market again, like pre-pandemic market, which that's the goal. And I think that we will get there. I think that by second quarter, maybe by summer, we're going to be totally back to like 2019, just with higher average sale price. But in terms of like the comings and goings in the market and like, the habits of buyers and sellers, I think it's going to be, very similar to the way it was in 2019. And in 2019, if you look at our average inventory, so like end of December of 2022, so just last month, and compare it to 2019, we have 1,000 homes. We are 1,000 homes shy in Winnipeg, not the surrounding communities, than we were in 2019. So we're 1,000 homes shy.
Wow.
So that's our saving grace right now. That's what's keeping our sale prices from, going down. If we had more inventory, then it'd be a different story for sure. But so that's the one saving grace. Now, how does this all affect a buyer or affect a seller? So I would say, like, if I'm giving advice to a buyer right now, I'm saying the best time to buy is when there's opportunity like this in the market. If you can qualify, and like I said, if you can lock in for like a 2-year fixed or 3-year fixed, stomach that pain, or go get qualify at a variable rate. I mean, gosh, even if fixed rates come down to 4.39%, it's not the end of the world. If it makes you feel comfortable, you want to know exactly what your payment's going to be, makes you feel super comfortable, just know that, those fixed rates will probably come down, whether or not we enter a recession, those rates will come down. And so I think that there's opportunity in the market right now. I'm not just saying that because I'm a realtor and all that kind of stuff. I'm saying it as a potential buyer as well. Like if I hadn't dedicated the investment decisions, like if I hadn't dedicated money to the investment decisions that Tara and I made, knowing what I know now and seeing what I'm seeing, I would be all in on real estate, because this is the time when people build true wealth in the market. When there's, the whole buy low, sell high thing, this is the time to buy when you can get a great opportunity or a great deal.
Yeah.
And if everyone is sitting on the fence at the same time and everyone is waiting for the perceived bottom of the market, number one, that bottom I don't think is going to come here. because we have such a steady economy here, I don't think we're going to see the bottom. But if everybody is waiting to jump when they think there's a bottom, well, we don't have the inventory for all those people who are going to jump at the same time. So we're going to be back in a very competitive environment again. So especially like when I say I don't think there's going to be a bottom, just researching and knowing what I know, what's coming. And I just pulled this up today, and this is from like the Canadian government themselves. Immigration floodgates have reopened now. These are actual numbers from StatsCan. 2023, 465,000 new immigrants are coming to this country. 2024, 485,000.
Wow.
2025, 500,000 new immigrants. So over the next 3 years, that's like almost 1.5 million new immigrants coming to this country. A lot of those people are going to funnel into the, real interest rate sensitive markets. Let's face it, places that are warmer: Toronto, Vancouver, BC, Ontario. But a lot of those people are going to funnel here. And the reason why they're going to funnel here is because we have steady economy, we have low prices, we have great jobs, affordable real estate. We're still one of the most affordable markets in Canada. And so if people are waiting for a bottom to occur, I don't think that's going to happen given those numbers. Like where these immigrants live, like, I don't know where they're going to live. We're not going to have the inventory to support them. So like, what determines the health and the wealth of a real estate market? People and jobs, right? So the other day I used to work with this like house flipper investor who kind of like goes from flipping houses to, building. Maybe he'll build like the odd duplex or whatever here or there, but his bread and butter used to be knocking and talking, and I hate to say taking advantage of people, but he would we buy houses for cash and just trying to get like the best deal he can, right? And so he called me the other day and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? Do you have any deals out there right now?" And I'm like, "There's honestly not a lot of deals right now. Like if you're a single family buyer, you're buying for your family, yeah. But if you're a flipper, good luck. Everybody's looking for the same thing right now." And he said, "Well, with all the interest rate increases and hikes, where's all the foreclosures?" I'm like, "Dude, there's no foreclosures happening. And I don't think there will be all these fire sales and foreclosures happening in the near future because number one, we have more qualifying, we have more stress testing than we ever had before."
Right.
Manitoba, if you look historically, Manitoba's delinquency rate is actually down. So that means that people have more equity in their homes. They don't need to hand their keys back to the bank. So we're not seeing these fire sales happening. Vast majority of homeowners in Manitoba have equity in their house. So, you can get a home equity line of credit or whatever to keep you above water. I could see if you bought at the absolute peak and then you got sick or, you lost your job or something like that. That's a different story, but that's a very, very small percentage of the population. And chances are those people are bailed out by family or whatever anyways, right? Like you're not really seeing foreclosures happen at the rate that they could happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not seeing these big fire sales. And he just couldn't understand. And I'm like, well, just, that qualifying rate, that stress test, that really saved our asses. Like, you could love them or you can hate them as a buyer, because you have to qualify at a much higher rate, and pushes your pre-approval down. That's the problem that we seem to be having right now. But, at the end of the day, that's there for a reason, to protect from shit like this, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I think, like, ultimately, if I was a buyer right now, and again, I'm not just saying this because I'm a realtor, I'm not just saying this because I work for builders, but the best pocket right now, I think, in terms of building wealth, if you're looking to buy new homes, especially if it's existing spec home inventory, because builders are a little bit more inclined to, makes more sense for the builder to just get rid of the property, not like fire sale or dump it, but like they have a little bit more motivation to move product right now, especially in a phased development. So like, if I had a like a family, a young family, and they were like, what would you do right now? I'd be like, buy something that's under construction, where the materials are paid, everything's priced out, or something that's finished already, a brand new home in a phased development in a desirable community within 20 to 30 minutes outside the city, in a good municipality, because you can get it for, I would say, I don't want to say the bottom, but you can get it for a really great deal right now. Because when the pendulum swings back the other way and rates come back down, we're not going to have the resale inventory. People are going to be flooding back into the new home market. It's going to drive the prices up on construction. It's going to drive the prices up on land.
Right.
And by the time they get to that next phase, the lots are going to be more money. So just by purchasing that home now, you could potentially build, $50,000, $60,000 in equity.
Yeah.
Right. So that you're in a very safe position moving forward. So, and if I hadn't invested money with our asset management or our investments, that's where I would be going right now. I would be buying and I'd be holding, I'd be renting. Rental market is really strong.
Yeah.
And then in 5 years from now, I'd be selling. And the difference that people will see in their equity is going to be amazing, I think.
Yeah.
Specifically with the opportunities with new homes, because you can do a lot of the sweat equity stuff yourself, landscaping, fences, decks, if you have the ability to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's a really good opportunity. So, so my prediction for the first quarter of this year, I know I made this in the first video, but I think it's going to be some of the same of what we're feeling already right now. We're going to have low inventory, low demand, and the Bank of Canada may hike another time yet. I think they're going to go up maybe 0.25 again, and then that's it. And I think that's done. No more rate hikes. And then moving into the second quarter of this year, I think that all the rate hikes are done. I think inflation's back down into the 4% territory. I think fixed rates are probably going to be in the mid to high threes.
Yeah.
That's my honest opinion. I think that demand is going to be way back up because of that. I think we're going to have super low inventory still. And I think we're going to have stable to flat prices until the end of the year. I don't think this is going to be like a big roller coaster year like we had, last year even.
Right.
Maybe we'll see some multiple offers come back on select resale houses. If you got that absolute minty, completely dolled up 1,200 square foot bungalow in Transcona on the perfect street,
And you're advertising it still under what it should probably sell for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might see that come back. I think by summer we might have a bit of a delayed spring market versus what we were used to in like a normal market because of that. But the moral of the whole story and picture that I'm trying to paint here is that the sky is not falling. It's not doom and gloom. And I'm sure as shit glad that we live where we live, you know?
Yeah. The list to sold ratio is still like 96%, which is sure down a lot since last year. Cause last year around this time, I think it was around 113 and it peaked in April, May around 120.
Yeah.
That's just for Winnipeg, but we're still seeing like lots of, I won't say lots, but several bidding wars. I mean, it's only the 20th of the month. We haven't even been a whole month into the year, and there's already been 15 bidding wars in Winnipeg alone, right? Like out of,
and that's low inventory. I mean,
that's in low inventory.
We got a lot of buyers that are, maybe they took a break over Christmas and holidays, and now they're like, oh crap, we better buy something here.
Yeah, if we don't buy soon, it's
people and that's kind of the story of like, middle to the last half of last year was like a lot of people chasing the rate hikes, right? Like trying to beat the rate hikes. And so people are willing to so as much as I talk about opportunity, for buyers, there's still absolutely, because when you've got a buyer out there that needs to buy, like I'm dealing with military and RCMP relos right now, and these are people who need to buy. It's like we've got a posting there. We start our job at the end of February, and we don't have a choice. Like we're coming in on a Friday. By Sunday, we have to own a house, and like those buyers are still out there, and those buyers that have, maybe they got to capitalize, like especially if they're relocations, chances are like they got to capitalize on the peak. If they had a home, say it's Surrey, BC, for example, maybe they have tons of equity and they got to capitalize. And our, $380,000 average sale price here is like peanuts to them. You think those people care about 4 or 5% interest rates? They don't care. They're coming here with like $500,000 worth of equity. They're just going to transfer it over and have little to no mortgage anyways. So, and like, that's another thing that we haven't talked about is relos. Relos are happening again, and they will continue to happen. And these people are going to go to very stable, steady markets. And, despite our weather, despite, murder capital, whatever, like we have the best real estate market. We do. So, and I think the proof will be in the pudding come Q2 of this year.
Yeah.
I think we'll look back and we'll be like, wow, what a crazy time we went through. And, but like, at least we don't see the big swings like these other provinces. Like I have a buddy who's a realtor in the Surrey area, and in his area at the absolute peak of that roller coaster market, he was selling, average 70s, 80s built bungalow in his area, 1.6 million.
Wow.
Getting multiple offers at that, which is just insane. Like I can't fathom that. But, a couple of weeks ago, he's like, yeah, you want the same house that I can get it to you, 850, 900K. I'm like, oh, so you're telling me that's a $700,000 swing in value?
Wow. Yeah.
And he's like, well, what's your swings look like? I'm like, try like 20 to 50,000 at like worst case scenario, 50,000, worst case, but like average, maybe 20 to 30,000. And I'm like, but we're also in a market where, we get an offer that's $5,000 under asking price, and the sellers are like, no, counter them, meet them in the middle at 2,500 under asking. You're like,
right.
I can't imagine. Can you imagine getting an offer for 700K under list price?
Yeah.
So like that's what we have. People have to look macro like that. They have to look to other provinces, so that, you know, when you do that, you're like, holy crap! Like it could be way worse. Way worse.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
But yeah, that's enough of my market rant.
And
what I think, my predictions of what I think is going to happen. I hope that I'm not offside. I mean, I'm not an expert, but when I want to, I can do my research. And I think that, you know, again, nothing shocks me anymore. Bank of Canada come out with a 2% rate hike on Wednesday, and then it's just like, okay, scrap everything that I just said. But I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, let's get into some stories. Let's get into story time here.
Story time.
Adventures in real estate. So I got there's a lot of crap that we see in our day-to-day, and some of them are really bad, and, you know, people falling in holes and stuff like that. But some of them are kind of funny as well. And so a few years ago, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I had this really nice first-time home buyer couple, and they were shopping in, like, they wanted to be in like Transcona, like East Kildonan, Elmwood, Transcona. So we see this cute little bungalow come up, and it was on their hit list. So we book a showing, and you know, I got them in, and these people, nicest people in the world, but they were notoriously late for every showing. So, like, you know, I always still joke with them about this, but they were like, sometimes it'd be like, okay, we'll be there in 10 minutes. And then half an hour later, you're like still there.
Yeah.
But whatever, it was all good.
Yeah.
So I booked a showing, and I get there. I didn't get there early. They were late. So I go in, and, you know, when we book showings and we're looking at properties, 99% of the time, the sellers aren't there. But oftentimes their pets are, right? I never really understood how, like, me personally, somebody who has pets, I couldn't imagine, like, having my house shown and countless strangers coming through my property with my pets running around.
Yeah.
I'd be terrified for them to, like, escape or whatever. But anyways, I show up there, I start turning all the lights on. It's this little 2-bedroom bungalow, and waiting for my guys to show up. I'm kind of standing in the front window, and I've like looked over the entire house already. Like, I looked at the basement, I looked at the bones or whatever, and finally they text me and they're like, we're running a little bit late. I'm like, okay, whatever, no problem. Just come on in when you're here. And I'm standing in the living room, and all of a sudden I turn around and there's like 3 or 4 of these big fluffy cats. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a Maine Coon cat, but they're like these giant fluffy cats.
Yeah.
So they come out of all these different rooms, and they're like, I guess they're hungry or whatever. So they start rubbing up against me, and I'm a cat guy. Like, we have cats. And so I start petting them, and they start purring, and then they're getting more friendly. And then I sat down, and pretty soon these cats are like jumping all over me and rubbing and meowing and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. You know, I'm the cat whisperer. And then my phone rings, and I thought it was my clients again. It wasn't my clients. It was the listing agent. And she was like, James, I need to ask you to please stop petting the cats. One of them is sick. I like frantically look around. I'm like, are you here? Like, how do you know that I'm petting cats right now? She said, well, no, I'm not there. My clients are, well, technically they're not, but they're down the street. And she said, they have surveillance, she called it. But it was like, they had basically a baby monitor camera set up on top of their TV. And I was looking around, and sure enough, I saw it. And I was like staring right at it as I'm on the phone with her. And not only was the camera rolling, but the audio was rolling as well. And I guess these people didn't want to leave too far because it was the winter time. So they would just spy on all the showings. And they park down the street and spy on all the showings. And which is super creepy thing to do. If you're a seller out there, please don't do that shit, because that's like just ugh, just gross.
Very cringe. Yeah.
Very cringe. Yeah. Let people, like, figure it out for themselves. Like, let them, don't spy on people. That's, but anyways, so she was like, yeah, they're parked down the street. And she's like, yeah, they've seen you. And, one of their cats is super sick. Like, he's got a disease, and they don't want him, like they don't want people touching him. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And I was like, did they hear my, like, baby voice that I was making? like I always, not always, but like, when you're petting an animal, it's like human nature for us to, like, baby talk them, And she's like, oh yeah, they heard everything. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like super embarrassed. My clients pull up. I see them get out. I like ran outside the front, and I was like, guys, just to let you know, there is a camera in the house. Not only are they recording everything, but they are listening in to all of the commentary as well. And they're like, are you serious? Like, where are they? And I just looked down the street, and I was like, see the headlights over there? That's them. And they're like, oh my God, that's so creepy. So the husband, my client, is like this super outspoken, anti-PC guy. So I told him not to say anything, but he comes in there and he's like, what a effing piece of crap. What a dump. The floors are so crooked. Oh yeah, he just went off. And I was fully expecting to get another angry phone call from the listing agent, but I didn't. So, but I was too embarrassed to leave my card. So I didn't want them to, like, remember who I was. And this person is not only a crazy cat person who, like, baby talks cats, but also, this is the guy whose client said this nasty thing and this nasty thing, But I mean, they had to have known that their realtor called me, because I'm like talking on the phone with her as I'm staring at them in the camera. So
yeah.
But yeah, super cringy. Moral of the story, just don't have a camera out.
Yeah. Also, for people inside the house, always assume you're being watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one, I guess so we can get into our topic of the week, which is market value versus, we can just call it values. I forgot to change the banner, but
yeah.
So the reason why I want to talk about this is because I went to a listing appointment. I did a market evaluation for some people, and I won't say too much, but they seem to have a different opinion of what their house is worth than I did. And I asked them, where did you get that number from? My number is lower, their number is higher.
Yeah.
And
that's it's
super common, right?
Yeah.
And they said, well, we had our home appraised, and this is the appraised value, and we would like to sell it for this appraised value. And I said, well, there is a difference. There's a difference between appraised value and market value, which is what we deal in. We deal in market value. And there's a difference between appraised value, market value, and tax assessed value. Because on the other side of the coin, we work with buyers as well. who used sometimes, most of the time, tax assessed value is lower than market value, than list price.
Yeah, because it's based on 2 years ago or more.
And oftentimes people are like, well, why is this priced higher than the tax assessed value? So I think it's important to kind of share and talk about what the differences are and why market value is the most important metric to use when you are pricing your home for sale.
Right.
So do you kind of want to talk about that?
Sure. So which one do you want me to talk about?
Appraised value.
Appraised value. Well, appraised value is like the value from the bank, right? So they're going to send out an appraiser who's going to go through past solds, which I mean, we kind of do as well, but they're typically doing it like they're not taking into consideration changes in market and stuff like that, right? Like they're looking at what has stuff sold for in this area. I've seen some that don't even use the area. One of my my clients was doing a refinance last year, and she had gotten an appraisal and it was way higher than I would suspect her house would actually sell for. And when she sent it to me so that I could see it, and it was like her Transcona house was being compared to a house like in the Maples even, right?
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it was very, very different. But it was a very similar house, but in the Maples, right? And then they did an area adjustment. But that being said, if there's enough houses in the actual area of the house, why isn't it compared to that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like an odd house or anything. But anyway, so yeah, bank appraisal value often comes in a lot higher, and we want it to, because that's the number that the bank's going to decide if they're going to what they're going to use to mortgage the house, right? Okay, it's worth 300 and you're asking for a mortgage for 280, we're happy to give you a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and market value is based on history of comparable sales, based on our experience working with buyers and sellers, based on our experience in the market. So what's happening at that exact time in the market, what's happening with interest rates. There's so many variables to consider. It's based more on what a buyer is willing to pay for it. So the common question I get is, well, why is your market evaluation lower than, say, the appraisal? And then so I ask, try not to be rude or throw it in their face, but it's like, unless the appraiser is willing to come in here and write you an offer for the price that he's, is he willing to put his money where his mouth is? Do you think that he would be confident to write an offer and buy your property for that price? Because my data is showing that he's not. And the reason why we use hyper local comparable properties is to show what the market's doing in that same area. If you compare, I think appraisers, a lot of times they compare apples to apples in terms of the house and like the features and benefits that house has. And that's why you might see them jump to like from Transcona to the Maples, for example, because maybe they have a hard time like finding the exact same property. But what's more important is, what is the market doing in this hyper local area?
Right.
And that's what our job is. And the sold comparable properties tell the story of what buyers have paid in the same time, as close to the same time in the market. And our understanding of the market also comes into play too, because if you don't understand what's happening in the market, and we can use the COVID anomaly years as an example, it's like, if you don't understand the market and what's happening in the market at the time that property is coming up for sale, you could find the best and highest comparable sale price at the peak of the market in, say, 2021.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, this house sold for $450 and it was listed for $350. So that means that my house is worth $450 as well. It's like, no, the market's changed. So you need to understand the market as well. And appraisers don't take that into consideration. Appraisers also, it depends on what it's for. Like you said, is it for refinancing purposes? Is it a rent appraisal? You know, are you trying to, are you getting an appraisal for a home equity line of credit? Like, are you trying to pull equity out? Because if you got a tenant in there and the property's cash flowing, well, yeah, of course it's going to be worth more to an investor or to the bank for the purposes of pulling equity out than it would be to, you know, a potential home buyer that's looking just to buy it as a single family home. So there's so many variables, but that's why market value is the most important. And then tax assessed value is just based on a calculation that typically the municipality or the city of Winnipeg uses to determine, you know, how much tax do we need to charge these people? Right. You know, exactly. And sometimes they look at features and benefits too, but they're basing their tax assessed value on the information that they have in their files about that property, whether it's like computer files or paper files or whatever. Yeah. And that's like
that have been pulled. And
yeah, they're not, you know, the tax man is not like knocking on your door. Hey, can I take a tour of your property? Like, they don't know all of the key selling features of your property. They just, you know, they have their little calculations that they do to determine property taxes. Now, I find there is kind of like a common mistake that some people make is that I have seen it where I have been called to do a home evaluation for the purposes of selling the property from a long-term owner who has maintained their property, but they haven't necessarily done a whole ton of like extras or upgrades or improvements or whatever, but the home is solid and it's, you know, it's just dated and it's in an area that is like really, really desirable. And you look at their tax assessed value and you're like, holy smokes, you compare it to the market value based on the features and benefits or lack of, and you're like, oh man, your tax assessed value is actually quite a bit higher than market value.
Right.
And that could be because that person is a long-term owner and they let those reassessments just happen, you know? Right. So every time you get a notice of reassessment in the mail, if you don't agree with that value, if you honestly look at it and you're like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if my house is actually worth this much money. And that's the problem, is a lot of people don't know. Mm-hmm. They just assume. And then they let it get way ahead of itself. And then they also don't know that they can fight that. Yeah. You know?
And every time the tax guide. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's something that us as realtors can help people with as well. Is, you know, oftentimes I get calls from people who are aware that they can fight their tax assessments. It's not normally for the purposes of like, well, you know, my assessed value is higher than perceived market value. It's, I don't think I need to be paying this much taxes.
Yeah, you don't want to pay too much tax. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, why should I be paying? I don't have like all of these perceived upgrades in my home. Why what gives you the right to increase my property taxes every single year? You know, I'm not getting any more benefit from the city or municipality. People just don't think that they can fight those taxes. So that's one thing that we can offer as well to clients or people who need help with this sort of thing, is to help fight that for you. So we can pull comparables, we can do market evaluations, that you can use all of this as ammunition when you go into fight the tax man.
Exactly.
And everybody's got the right to challenge their property tax bill.
Yes.
So,
and also to make sure that the information that the municipality has is correct, because sometimes it's not. Maybe you tore down an old garage and it's no longer there. And unfortunately, the municipality isn't aware of that, right? Like, so sometimes you just have to, it's about updating it.
Yeah.
A frequent one I see is people being levied an additional tax or like a caveat for, like, say the garage is like too close to the back lane, or the fence was too close to the back lane, and maybe it's long been moved. The current owner doesn't even realize that they're paying, $80 a year for this for this
Yeah.
thing that is too close to the city property. And I think it costs $100 to have, that's in the city of Winnipeg, I don't know about elsewhere, to have them come out and take a peek at it, and then they remove that from your taxes. So it's saving you money long term, right?
Yeah.
It also looks better when you go to sell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers the differences between appraised value, market value, which is the most important value when it comes time to sell, market value, and tax assessed value.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, if you're priced too high, sometimes people are like, well, I'd like to try my price. Okay, you want to try your price? The market is always going to tell you what your house is worth. It's the market. That's our job, is to show you and help guide you using market value to properly price your home, so that you don't have to do price reduction after price reduction after price reduction. So you don't have to learn the hard way and have the market dictate and tell you what your house is worth. So just do it right the first time. And I understand, if you have a different idea, it's hard to trust someone who, like us, who, our job is to sell houses. But I think more importantly, our job at the end of the day is to make sure that, your house is sold in a timely manner for the best price possible, and for terms that are the most appealing to you as a seller. Mm-hmm. And if you overprice a property, there are some pretty significant dangers with that as well. And reducing the price constantly is one of those. But maybe that we could save that for another video, the dangers of overpricing.
Yes, there's lots to talk about there.
Yeah. But we'll move on to the last segment, which is Business of the Week.
Business of the Week.
Give some flowers to some local businesses. Mm-hmm. So this week I've got two, and the first one I'm going to start with is a company called DSC Plumbing. DSC Plumbing and Mechanical. Actually, the guy's name is Dale Supak. Dale Supak. I can't pronounce his last name properly, but just Dale from DSC. Tara and I, my wife and I, needed to get a new water softener and iron filter, some other plumbing work done at our place, like a new pre-filter and stuff like that. And we tried to find somebody that was relatively close to our place. So Dale and his company, they're based out of Stonewall, and he came out and he tested our water for us. That was all included. So he did a water test to determine what kind of minerals we had in our water and how our existing softener and filters were working, which they weren't at all. But based on the mineral levels that we had, he recommended the right system, and he gave us different options, and we kind of picked, the best option. And he was very open and honest about everything. And yeah, he was in and out, and he did a phenomenal job, and he was super great at communication, and just a really, really good guy. And I wanted to shout him out and his company. For anybody who's looking, if you're rural, if you're in a small town, you have a well, you need some water treatment done, you need plumbing, DSC, can't say enough good things about him. So super, super great guy. And it was pretty affordable too, actually. I was surprised. And now our system is running great, so no complaints. And then my second shout out business is, I guess not really a business. It's an animal hospital, mm-hmm. Oakbank Animal Hospital. Dr. Fleming I was a vet at Oakbank Animal Hospital. Tara has been taking her pets there forever, and we've been taking our animals there as well, and they're so good. Nicest people, the best advice when it comes to our animals. They really care about animals. They care about people. So if you're looking for a great vet, if you're in the city and you're willing to drive a bit, or if you're in the arm of Springfield or surrounding areas, East St. Paul, Oakbank Animal Hospital, can't say enough good things about them. So that's it for me this week.
Mine is also something for our fuzzy little friends. I only have one this week. Perfect Paws Groomers. They are the groomer that that grooms my Shih Tzus, and they do an amazing job. The woman that does ours, Lori, I actually have I'll say a past relationship. She was she had helped me when I had wanted to get dogs originally, because we had never owned dogs on our own before. So she had helped me get Chihuahuas, and yeah, it was really awesome. So anyway, so now she's grooming and she does an amazing job. And they also have raw food and treats, as well as offer boarding. And they also offer mobile services for animals that would feel more comfortable staying in their own home. I like to take my girls there because they always get socialized with other dogs while they're there, and because it is a nice big place and they have lots of little areas that, you know, so that they will be kept with other little dogs. The other day they played with a baby poodle. He was like about 12 weeks old.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it was good for them. And yeah, so that it was lots of fun.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to episode 3, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see what happens on January 25th with the rates. And hopefully it's not all doom and gloom.
Hopefully not.
Okay.
So
awesome. Take care, guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye for now. Bye.